back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Here to talk about the never-ending Rutgers search for a new athletic director. Took a bit of not a bit. I'm trying to be nice. I'm on my best behavior tonight. It's been a long week. It's late on a Thursday night, putting this out late Thursday night. Probably listen to this on Friday. But last week I had a pod on the search and expressed frustration, concern that this is really just turning into a real shit show. And unfortunately, those suspicions definitely have not been debunked. Let's put it that way with this week's developments. Multiple reports, the night report, Star Ledger coming out with the news that Brian Lafemina, the reported top candidate for the job, has turned down the job. A Rutgers alum. I really like his background. Worked for Madison Square Garden for 20 years. Worked for the Redskins. Was part of the 2028 Olympic Committee for the Los Angeles that was successful. Worked for a private, sports equity company. He has that background that Rutgers is reportedly, and I think everything I've heard, looking to go in the direction of a sports executive, right? To run the athletic department and then bring in a number two that has experience running an actual department, but you need that sports executive at the top to really be innovative, resourceful, drive revenue, drive NIL, drive everything, right? And so I think let's start with, again, I'm trying to be balanced here. Let's give Rutgers props, right, for having some vision and going in that direction, wanting to go in that direction, and identifying someone that's homegrown, that by all accounts loves Rutgers, is involved. I think, people sometimes when they hear things reported, they think it's real time. I don't think, he came out of nowhere. I think this was a pretty long process with him. And I think that is partly why this makes this so devastating, is that I think this was Rutgers' guy for a long time. And it didn't work out. I think Lafemina is obviously a desirable person in this industry. People were sending me the website of Arctos, where he was no longer listed as a partner. It sounds like he's leveraging this into a new opportunity. He probably, Rutgers can't compete with the private sector in terms of salary, I'm sure. Can Rutgers be competitive salary-wise, comparable to other Big Ten schools? God, let's hope so. But in terms of the private sector, that's going to be difficult, I think. And this guy's got a legit background, but it is still very disconcerting that a Rutgers alum turned them down. And I think this was someone that it wasn't a surprise. This has been a long process, and it ultimately ended in a no. Is it too early for a Lafemina no joke? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But this is devastating. And whether I don't know. Would he have worked out? Would he have been the best choice? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Now it's been reported by everybody in terms of, I'll give Night Report and Star Ledger, but Mike Polisi, who was the president of sports marketing firm Van Wagner's college division. He's not a Rutgers alum, but he used to be the associate director of the Scarlet Art Club in the 80s. He was dealing with Rutgers sponsorships throughout his career. He's a New Jersey guy. The Ledger even cites he's friends with the owner of Jersey Mike's, Pete Crancrow, the sponsor of, the Rack. So that's, again, I guess this also raises questions, right? Why did they hire a search firm if their top two picks are homegrown, known entities that there's obviously relationships with? I don't, and again, I'm asking this in part because I don't fully know. Is it a liability thing? Is it a scapegoat thing? Is it just a perception thing? I've so many times in college coaching searches and AD searches, these schools hire these search firms, and I don't really know what they do, because a lot of times they end up with candidates that kind of seem like inevitable anyway. And both of these finalists seem like pretty logical finalists for Rutgers. And now, is Polisi the guy? I don't know. It sounds like he's been in the mix a while. I think the dynamic here is interesting to kind of consider, right? Obviously, and I'll go back to alignment. You know, you wait almost a year to start a search. I mean, they hired turnkey in late April. I believe when you're listening to this on Friday, this will be day 80 since then. So yeah, I had some people after last week's pod say, "Oh, you're not considering the fact that Tate, they waited on the president. That's why the delay." Yeah, well, if you listen to the pod, I said that. But also, your day 80 since Tate was essentially, or since the search firm started, but Tate was announced in mid-May. Like, we're over 2 months now, or right at 2 months since Tate was announced. And it seems like the Board of Governors continues to be the driver here. And if that's the case, fine. I think Amy Towers is more than competent. I've spoken very highly of her throughout this whole past year. But the fact that if you're the Board of Governors, this is kind of your guy, now it fell through. You waited all this time to have a president in place, which makes sense. But if the president now, and I called for action last week, I'm going to call for it again. This is now where President Tate has to be more involved, right? Because if he's not involved and if he's not actively bringing in the guy that he wants to work with, then why did we wait a year to really dig in? And if Lafemina was your guy earlier, right, and you're waiting for the president to be on board and then it blows up in your face, it's just messy. It's messy. It makes you wonder, is there a power struggle now, in terms of Polisi versus Lafemina? And, did Lafemina get cold feet? Was he playing Rutgers the whole time for a better offer? I don't think that's the case. I don't want to believe that. He's an alum. I from everything, it sounds like he's a legit, alum supporter, fan, everything. Sometimes in life, it just, it sounds like on paper it would be a perfect fit, and it's not. So more power to him. I mean, listen, that's, hopefully he's going in the right direction for his career. Wish him the best. No hard feelings. But now you're at a point where it's like, are we back to square one? Is it, candidate 2 versus nobody, but nobody is probably in the front running? I don't know. If you're Rutgers, if it falls apart, you would think if Polisi was a legit number 2, they'd have that lined up by now. But it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. So it makes you think that, all right, maybe he was number 2 then, but maybe that was to placate someone. Maybe that was just to, have a number 2, and maybe that's not a real number 2 now, and maybe it is back to the drawing board. So it's obviously concerning. It's obviously befuddling, frustrating, and I hate to say it, but it's really not surprising if you're a longtime Rutgers fan, because this is the kind of shit that happens. And I don't know all the behind the scenes, and I'm not trying to blame people, but all I can go off of is the results. And right now, there's no results. And July 18th, media day is next week for Big Ten football. Rutgers kicks off in soccer in about a month's time. The school year is about to begin. The most transformative school year in college athletics history was revenue sharing, which is going to evolve. NIL is evolving. Like, all this stuff is happening, right? We even talked about the power struggle right now with the Big Ten and the SEC, and there's no one in charge. Let's talk about the fact that, now they hired a second interim athletic director, and that is, I'm not laughing at who it is. Matthew Calagiovanni. If I butchered your last name, I'm sorry. I know he's been with Rutgers a long time. I know people like him. I have nothing against him at all. But we've hired a second interim athletic director. Second. Who hires a second interim athletic director? It's laughable. It's laughable. I'm laughing because I don't want to cry. That's the point I'm at with this search, because it's just painful. It's painful. And it's not just that Passari's left now. And, I gave him credit last week and wish him the best. Sean Tucker has left, longtime administrative, obviously former football player, great football player for Rutgers. The chief compliance officer, Matt Podoroff, has left. Key Hickey is retiring. Like, the writing's on the wall. People are fleeing, which, again, this is not a slight on any one person, but I think probably there needs to be a reset in the athletic department, right? Administratively. But now there's just no one mending the fences. It's there's a lot of holes there right now. And ideally you would have had a new AD in place in June. So you have the whole summer to gear up, restaff, and go into the school year with a brand new vision, with a brand new staff, and you're off and running. And you're fundraising, and you have the fall to really capitalize on with the football season. And that's not going to happen now. It's not going to happen now. We'll be lucky if we have an athletic director hired by August 1st. And hired by August 1st means they're not starting August 1st. Are we going to have an athletic director in the booth, in the stands for the opener? Late August, Labor Day weekend? I would not bet on that. I wouldn't bet on it. And I think that's the thing. It's like the time that has transpired, right, to get to this point and to whiff on your top candidate who is a Rutgers guy, it's disheartening, And then the fact that, I mean, if your number 2 finalist is also kind of heavily associated with Rutgers, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be a go, then what kind of search is this? What is the search firm value bringing to the table? I don't really know. I don't understand. And again, I've been open about this. I mean, the dynamics of this job are concerning. I think it's a tough situation for anyone to come in. And now you have to wonder, are there just not a lot of quality candidates out there for Rutgers that are interested in the job? And I don't care what, self-proclaimed Twitter heroes want to say, and they know best, and all these people are interested, and it's a great job. I live in reality. That's what I try to do. And to steal a line from Matt Damon, I'm shooting from the hip because that's, I've gotten feedback like, oh, you've gotten a lot more negative. Listen, I've always tried to tell it like I think it is. I called for Flood's firing. I called for Julie Herman's firing. I was pretty vicious back then because there was reason to be. And then Hobbs came in. There was a lot of reasons for optimism. Peichel came in. There was a lot of reasons for optimism. Schiano came back. There was a lot of reasons for optimism. Things were on the up and up. And now things are not steadily going down. They've trickled all the way down. Rutgers has finished last in the Directors' Cup standing 3 years in a row now. There's been no AD for a year. They missed a huge opportunity in basketball. They missed their ceiling in football. NIL isn't the worst, but it certainly has a lot of room to grow. And there's just no leader at the top right now. Again, I have a lot of confidence in President Tate, but if you waited this long to bring him on before you really got into brass tacks of the AD search, make him a major part of the process now, please. Because there's obviously, I don't know if there's a power struggle, but it seems like the politics, the dynamics internally, again, it's about alignment. And if there's alignment, then securing your top choice, I really believe that that's got to be in some way part of why that didn't work out. I'm sure money was part of it. The challenge, right? It's not an easy lift. And I was just alluding to that, just the politics to play in New Jersey and at Rutgers, the fact that you have a basketball coach that's, had 3 down seasons in a row and still has a 20+ million buyout. You have a football coach that's entrenched, that isn't going anywhere. And let's be honest, didn't have a great dynamic with the previous AD. Not saying that was Schiano's fault at all, but you need an AD that's going to be able to work hand in hand with Schiano. And let's be honest, I mean, in the past, we know Schiano wants to do it his way, as he should, right? But how in lockstep is that new AD going to be with Schiano? I think that's key for both of them. I think it's key for Schiano to elevate the program, to be able to have an AD that he sees eye to eye with and is a partner with. And at the same time, an AD needs Schiano to be willing to partner with him. So that's part of it, right? And if you're an AD, a lot of the allure of an AD, and again, this is more of a sports executive, but everyone loves to put their mark on things and make their own hires, right? And when you come to Rutgers, there's a good chance like you're not going to be able to make a hire in basketball or football for at least 3 years, right? Everybody says, I know people want to say Pike was on the hot seat, and he certainly has to improve things. But even if they bomb out next year, how is Rutgers going to raise the money? I still don't think people realize he's going to be owed over $20 million. I don't think he's going anywhere. And what a shame that would be for an AD to have to raise that kind of capital to just erase the coach, because then you have to raise basically that same amount to bring in a quality new coach, to have promises and guarantees on NIL and resources and salary, and it's a never-ending money circle. So basketball is a very big challenge for the new AD. Football, not saying, I mean, Schiano obviously deserves, has earned his place, right? But at the same time, what's it going to take to get this program to the next level? And this AD and Schiano have to be able to work hand in hand to be able to get it there. Again, you're not going to be able to hire the football coach. You're not going to be able to hire a basketball coach, I think, for a while. And you have a history of a lack of NIL. I think NIL is okay in some cases. It's not great. Definitely not top half Big Ten. And you have a lot of, facility challenges. You have to redo the entire administration. It's a big lift. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot to come into it. I think by nature, right or wrong, we associate, Rutgers and New Jersey only local people understand and can fit here. I don't think that's true. I don't think it'll be true in the case of President Tate. But I think if you're a quality athletic director candidate, if you're a sports executive that's interested in college athletics now because of the new dynamic, is Rutgers tonight kind of a alluring spot to go? Honestly, I don't think it is. If I'm being honest. And I think that's a major concern here. You whiffed on your top candidate, a homegrown candidate, and now this raises all these kinds of questions for future candidates. Well, why did one of your own say no? What did they see in the job that made them not want to take it, right? And now it's out in the open. And there was no reporting, and now there's a ton of reporting. And that's not, I was asking for it, and I'm glad as a fan, as someone that cares about what's best for Rutgers, it's a good thing because it puts pressure on them now. But in terms of perception also, it's a bad thing because the mess that I feared was behind the scenes, it might be kind of boiling over, not behind the scenes anymore. And the more time this goes now, it's like the clock is against you. And things are kind of, I don't want to say spiraling out of control, but this is certainly not where you want to be. Where you had to hire a second. I knew as soon as, before the news of Lafemina even came out, and I heard that name for a long time. Before that news even came out, when they hired the second interim AD, you knew they were cooked. And you're not going to hire a second AD, interim AD, if you're close to hiring an AD. You're just not. And I think if that's another sign, that's not going to be policing. Because why are you going to hire a second interim? And again, it's not hire, it's promoting, right? You're promoting. Matt C's been the Rutgers guy for a long time, very competent by all accounts, but that's not a sign that you're close. That's a sign that you're starting over. And again, it's July 18th, and Rutgers is apparently no closer to hiring someone than they were a month ago. Actually, they're farther away because they knew who the guy was a month ago, and they didn't get it done. I'm rambling a bit. It's been a long week. Again, Michigan State made a hire within a month. Maryland, less than 2 months. Rutgers now creeping up towards 3 months since announcing the search firm. Over 2 months now, will be in a few days since President Tate was hired. Overall, Pat Hobbs resigned in the middle of last August. I'm going to the beach again in a few weeks. I was going to the beach. He resigned 2 days before I went last year. I'm going back in a few weeks. Here we are. We still haven't had an athletic director. So it's a nightmare situation. And again, it's the dynamics of the situation too. it was tailor made for landing a sports executive that had Rutgers ties, that the Rutgers dynamic for them made sense to take on this challenge. Does it make sense for a competent sports executive to want to take on the job that is the Rutgers athletic director? I think that's a harder ask, and that's why I think you're going to need more money for that person. So we're in a bit of a vicious cycle here, and I have no good news. I don't have a lot of optimism. Just trying to check my notes here. I think I kind of said everything. I don't need to belabor the point other than it ain't good, and I don't even have much humor tonight. I made the joke before. Rutgers, I love you, but you're bringing me down. LCD sound system. Bit of a rephrasing. And you know what? It's no better. I was hoping after last week, maybe we'd see some positive traction. I'd even love it if they hired someone the next day and people made fun of me for putting that out. Unfortunately, as a Rutgers fan, fortunately for me as a podcaster, it aged well. And I've even less hope today. So that's where we're at. Let's hope Rutgers can figure it out. I like Amy Towers. I like a lot of people at Rutgers, but this is a mess. This is a mess, and I don't know when it's going to end. You have to get the right person. I'd much rather it take another month to nail a home run hire, but I'm skeptical that that's possible. And now I think we have to worry, are they going to panic and make a quick hire for the sake of perception, and it might not be the best hire? I don't know. But again, it all goes back to alignment. President Tate needs to be more involved. Now's the opportunity. The Board of Governors had their guy. They didn't land them. I'm not saying the Board of Governors is incompetent, but now you're in the dynamics have changed. And you've waited this time. Bring in the president. Work together collaboratively. Get everybody in a room. Get everyone on the same page. And find the right person to lead this athletic department, because if you don't, and every day that it doesn't happen, Rutgers continues to fall behind. And where they were 3 years ago to where they are now is not in a good place. And it's only going to get worse if we can't truly turn around the leadership and the vision of this athletic department. Thank you so much for watching and listening once again here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Have a great weekend.